Hi, everybody. My name is Heidi Weeks, and welcome to the Innovator's Mindset.
There it is. Look how awesome that one was.
Better than the first.
That's it. The first one's staying up, just so you know. I'm gonna do like
Well,
a
you
whole
can use
flavor
that one
reel.
for, yeah, use it for laughter later. The blooper reel.
Hey, I before we get into this, Heidi is the deputy superintendent, incoming superintendent, and this will be right before she's superintendent. And it's not because of this podcast, but I task a school district and is amazing. I was in Itasca with two other school districts, but I just want to give them a little. So she is. I've asked her to guest host, and she has read the new book Forward Together. And I don't know what her questions are. I don't know what she's going to ask me. She's a superintendent, and before she takes over, I just want everyone to know she is someone I very much look up to. She's an incredible leader, and can I say this? We're kind of like buddies now,
We are.
right? You are someone I like really appreciate. Every time I get a text from you, you make my day better. So you are someone I consider a good friend. So when I asked you to do this and you said no, I was like, what? I thought, no, I was just kidding.
I know. I
No,
said yes and then got very nervous, but then quickly
you
told
have,
myself,
I'm telling you, I know, by the way, I'm like totally taking over your hosting. I just want to make sure everyone knows right at the top how incredible you are and how much I actually look up to you for advice. And so I think no matter where you're in a career, you can benefit from mentorship. And I consider you a mentor, whether you take on that role or not. So
well,
that's how
I,
we're starting that.
I appreciate that. I think we all need a mentor from time to
Dude,
time. So that street does go both ways. So
I
I
appreciate
appreciate
you.
being here and giving the opportunity because I think leaders need to also model doing hard things and new things and being a little uncomfortable. So
Good.
that
That's
that
what I'm trying to do. And you are pushing me. So,
well. I hope to push you in a couple of these questions
all
because,
right.
like you said, I enjoyed your book. I sat down with it on a Saturday morning, and about Saturday around lunchtime, I finished it. I did print it out old school. I know you made fun of me because
Sorry.
I know I didn't read it on my computer. I did print it out, wasting some paper, but I'm going to keep this book. I did a lot of annotations and some highlights and some notes, and it was really great to read. So I felt
Thank
honored
you.
that you chose me to be one to read it. So
And you were in the reading phase where I wasn't just looking for endorsement, I was looking for feedback too, because I could still change things. But anyone that I ask now to read it, I'm like, I don't want any feedback. It's too late. This is how it is.
ship
So
has sailed. Well, there
yeah,
you go for your sequel.
no, we'll see. Every time I write a book, I'm like, that's it. That is the last
I
one.
think
I'm not doing it. So we'll see.
I will say this book lends it to a sequel. You could say continuing our forwardness or together forward as always. You
I,
never
we'll
know.
see. We'll see. We'll see how this one does.
All right. Well, you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go. What do we
Are
got?
you nervous? Okay. So one thing that I've always just thought about in my career, and certainly a lot of my research has been around vulnerability.
Mhm.
And I saw this theme came up throughout your book, from your story from meeting Dave Burgess and your dinner with him, and I'm sure how uncomfortable that was.
Yes.
Even the moment where you thought for sure you were going to be the captain selected for the football team, and you kind of work through that, and then just the stories that you tell working with teachers.
Hmm.
And I think I felt validated and valued to know that this is a process that you've gone through. And I'm sure it's not one night you woke up and you're like, I'm going to be vulnerable
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, what helped you get there? What were the setbacks? What were the things that pushed you forward? How can we help others, I think, understand that the best growth comes from vulnerability, even though it's the scariest thing for some?
Well, that's a really interesting question, and I think it's weird because when I talk to people and I encourage them to share what they're doing, one of the pushbacks I often get, and I think it's a really valid one, is I don't want to brag. Like I don't want to brag, and I totally understand that, right? And there is a certain element of social media that you just kind of like, come on, like I don't want to just quit showing how awesome you are and stuff like that too. And it feels that way. And I think one of the things that I got for feedback was, and I really appreciate it, it's from a principal I know. He said it's really conversational and you're giving advice in a totally non-condescending way. So you're really looking from your lens and how you're doing it. And so my response to people when they are sharing that concern of becoming off, like that they're very braggadocious, for lack of a better term, is I just share my learning online. And I don't say it's good or bad. I just share what's going on. And I think that process has really helped me. And I think it was because I didn't want to come off as the guy bragging about, oh, look at this, look at this. Now, the one thing, I think I do this in the book as well. If I'm going to brag on someone, it's other schools, it's people I'm serving, it's teachers that are really doing a great job. Even there was a story I remember just kind of talking about this, where I share a story about myself and a teacher, and I outright say, it's not me who's going to look, or it's not her who's going to look bad in this story, right? And she, as I'm telling the story, she looks incredible, and I struggle, but I just don't, I think part of it too, and I know this sounds weird, if I say I look bad, then you can't say it as well. Like, I've kind of taken that power away from you. And my superintendent, her name is Kelly Wilkins, amazing leader. She is like, no surprises. Like, we want no surprises. So if something was going wrong, and this is great advice for administrators, whether the superintendent gets a call or not, you call the superintendent to say, like, hey, heads up, this might be coming your way, so that they're prepared. Would you agree with that sentiment?
100%.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And 95%, no phone call happened, but the 5% it did, they kind of knew what was coming their way. And I never got in trouble for giving a heads up. It's the time where I didn't say anything that's the concern. So I just felt like, it's way better to own it yourself, way better to go through that process. And we are in a learning profession. Like, literally, our job is learning. And so if I only share the ups, then I am bragging. But it's sharing the ups and downs, how I've kind of worked myself through the process. And as I say in the book, my hope is, my hindsight is, age your foresight. And so that to me is, it's become natural a little bit over the years, because I don't feel like I'm sharing failures. I'm just sharing the process of learning, because I'm not done. So I'm still figuring it out.
That teacher was Cheryl, correct?
Yeah, it was.
So I wrote something down. I think that you said in that story, I focused so much on what she couldn't do that I didn't pay attention to how good she was at the things
Mhm.
I couldn't do.
Right.
And I highlighted that. I put a sticky note there. I just think that was such a
Yep.
powerful moment of you being reflective and vulnerable, even to say that out loud to yourself. I think vulnerability can look different in lots of different ways, where you can be vulnerable to others.
Yep.
I think sitting and being vulnerable with ourselves, I think that was such a powerful, wrote it down right here.
Oh,
Um,
that's good.
remember
You
it
are
because I thought
prepped.
that was good. And something else you said too, as you talk through the stories and the strategies and the anecdotes, one powerful word I connected to was, you said these anecdotes for considerations.
Mhm.
So I think you spoke to being intentional with our words, and you just how we are in our space and our communities. But I feel like that was such an intentional thing. And when I read that, I was like, that's so powerful. This is
Mhm.
things for people to consider. It's not like you're trying to say, this is the George Couros way. You do this step one, step two, step three, step four. Here's a bunch of things that I've learned and things that I've failed at, which I think is so powerful and so meaningful, I think, for leaders, because for me, I'm type A. I want to do everything correct, but I have not, unfortunately, for everyone out there listening. But I think it's just so nice to hear others say those things out loud. As I read your book, I felt very validated and valued for the work that I do, because others have done this work along the way and have had moments of like, yeah, this isn't working, or I need to turn the mirror back. And you talked about adult behaviors, and I think that's such a nice place for us to work with our leaders. Certainly myself, I've been around for a while as a leader, but I'm not done growing and learning. So
Mhm.
it's just a good perspective to continue to remind ourselves.
Well, that is, I think one of the interesting feedbacks from the book is actually talking about the principles and the perspectives, and saying, here are some big ideas that really can work well, but they won't always work. And
Right.
actually acknowledging that and saying that, because I feel a lot of times when we write these books, it's like, if you do these 5 things,
They're all going to work.
it's going to work. And it's like, if you do these 6 things I talk about, they'll help you, but they're not going to work perfectly, because you understand your context and community. So the
Right.
perspectives will help ground you
Right.
to kind of recalibrate, rethink how you do things. And, this goes back to the innovator's mindset. I kind of want to share ideas, but ultimately you find the solutions. And so because your community, how you work, what you do, what you need, where you are, where you want to go, that's all different. I don't know that stuff. So it's really trying to put the power in. I think I'm trying to, pull a mirror up to myself, but also a mirror up to anyone reading it is also a lens to look through. Like, this guy screwed up here. Have I done that before? Is there a way I can, rethink this? Because then you don't feel as bad if I screwed up and you're learning from my mistake. But it's hopefully, even, I'm trying to talk people through, like, you've probably made mistakes as well. And so when you do that, how does that help you guide people forward?
I think those perspectives, if teachers can't see, leaders can't see, educators can't see themselves in a situation or see someone else that's been in that situation,
Mhm.
the principals aren't effective because they don't understand how they would be impactful
Right.
for themselves or how they have been impactful for others.
Right.
So,
Yeah. And that is, that is the hope, is just kind of seeing that too. And, like I try to share a lot of strategies, but here's where here things went wrong. And, I'm going to be honest with you. I had to reread the book. One of my favorite lines, and maybe I'm ruining this, is I talk about, like, for me, books are good books have like the roller coaster, right? Some
story
good, some
arc.
bad, and stuff like that. And I talked about the story arc in there. And I said, too much story arc or too much professional learning is flat line. There's no emotion to it. And you should have a story arc. And this, I did laugh out loud. I'm like, because I wrote this in summer and haven't revisited it. I said, do you know what else is a flat line? When you're dead. And I was like, what was I
Yep.
doing when I wrote that? I did like that line of my own. I'm not gonna lie. I was
No,
like, what was I thinking when I wrote that? So yeah,
got to get it all out to make it all make sense.
yeah,
So, confession, on the way to work today, I listened to one of your podcasts. It was the
okay,
one where you talked about the process on your book cover.
mm,
Uh, I listened to the podcast just to kind of get the feel of kind of what this would be like today and just
yeah,
kind of hear your voice and get kind of immersed back in the content. And what I appreciated the most is how you were vulnerable to with the process of picking your book.
yeah,
Um, how hard was that for you to kind of give it up to others? Knowing you would tell me that you like to control what it might look like, but being vulnerable again, just
yeah.
being open to talk through that whole process and what got you to get there? Like, how did you decide, like, I'm gonna let people choose this versus
Yeah.
I'm gonna choose the ones very sleek and clean lines as you talk about your tastes?
The interesting thing was it wasn't hard to share that with the community that I connect with at all, because I already decided what I was going to pick. So I was like, they're just going to affirm it. So I wasn't worried about it
Did
at
they? Did
all.
they affirm it?
And they didn't. And I was like, oh. And it was interesting because I just said, hey, I'm going to share this. Everyone's going to love the one I love, obviously. And I'm going to throw it out there. But I'm asking for feedback. And the really interesting thing about the process was I didn't want people just to put which one you like. I said, which
Right,
one do you like, and tell me why.
right.
And so if you just said cover two, I sent you an email back. Thanks for telling me that. And there was a lot of that too. And that kind of helped, because I saw how many people liked the one. And, but people were like giving amazing reasoning. And also it was like fascinating. People said, hey, this is my reasoning. And I wanted to back it up. So I actually threw the three covers in ChatGPT and it backed me up. And here's why. And the amount of work that people put into giving me their input, it wasn't just like, oh, I should change it because people gave me input. They literally changed my mind. And that is a hallmark throughout the book, is that when you are asking for feedback, you have to be open that you are wrong, So I was open to it, but
And that's
I
so
was kind
hard.
of shocked. I was
That's
shocked.
so hard for people to do.
Yeah,
How I want to like bottle that up, and how do we package that
right.
so you can spread that around?
Well, so there was the part where I talked about the insecurity, confidence, and arrogance. And basically, if you're insecure, you often, you make bad decisions based on you don't want anyone to know that you're struggling, right? If you're arrogant, you just think you're better than everyone. Confidence is basically being open to that feedback, and it's not like you're either one or the other. I feel I was thinking about this the other day. there's certain things where I'm very insecure about. There's certain things I share a refing story. If you are not a touch arrogant as a ref, you will never last, because you have to go like, listen, I know better than everyone here, because you'll start crying on the court. You have to
Unless
like,
your parents are in the stands, then
exactly, exactly. And so, uh, so I think it's that notion, and talking about confidence, it is the appreciation that I'm very proud of what I've achieved, but I also know I can still get better. And that's where I feel that's, as like maybe I get older, that's where I'm kind of finding on that too. Cause I was zero offended by the feedback and people changing my mind. I appreciate it, because listen, if I got a bunch of people telling me and they're giving me good reasons why, and the thing is with like book cover, which is interesting, I'm gonna pick it. The one I changed my mind. The book is released by now, so you can see what the cover is. And some people will say, "Hey, listen, I actually like the other one better," and that will be okay, because you cannot get everyone to agree on everything. But there is a reason why I picked the one that I did, and it is because people didn't just say which one they liked. They gave me very good reasoning on how it really embodied what I was trying to capture in the book. So I think that's that part of being confident that, hey, I'm proud of the book. I'm proud of what I did. I but I can still get better, and just kind of like whatever. I know it's such a weird thing. I lost no sleep over people picking a different one than I did. It actually made me just really inspired by it, because people were really, really excited to give their input on it as well. That I
now
even asked, right?
do you think your first book you would have done that same thing, or do you think this is because you've just learned so much and
There was actually like, I've done this before, but I didn't do it the way I did it this time. So I've
okay,
asked for feedback on the covers, but it was just different, because I talked about how I didn't want just like a Google form or you just put the number.
right,
I wanted reasoning, and
right,
it was like an invitation to give me feedback. And I think one of the big takeaways is that we always talk about using technology to save time, and it was not a time saver. This was not a time saver, because I responded.
it's complicated.
By the end, I had about 800 responses directly to me, and I responded to every single person. And the more you wrote, the more I wrote back. So if you said number two, I'd say thanks. If you said, hey, this is number two and here's why. And then I would like read through their comments and make sure that they knew I read their comments in the response. And then it's another email back and forth. So yeah, it was a cool process. And hopefully people see that their fingerprints are on this book, because and like what was weird, I was like, this is actually what I talk about in the book, and I just do it innately now. And it's kind of neat to see that's how my brain is wired that way, right? If I actually wasn't open to the change, I would have never asked.
Right, for sure. I'm
Yeah.
thinking of the name of Jim Carrey typing.
Right.
And typing. Was that you
I
going through?
spent I spent I spent I think 8 hours sitting at a Starbucks responding to emails from that. And that was like just one chunk of it, but it was like took me all day sitting at a Starbucks responding, reading. And it was just amazing. I was like, I never thought of that. That's why you ask questions. That's why you ask, is because you want to get better. Right.
Yeah. So again, as I read this book, I mentioned I felt very valued and validated, and I commented a lot, and I was nodding my head and marking up and putting people's names in my world and connecting to your thoughts. And I really, what anchored to with me is that point A to point B,
Mm-hmm.
meeting people where they are, and having, not having my blinders on to that.
Yeah.
I think oftentimes I get stuck because I want people, this year, this is the thing we're doing. We're all
Right.
moving here. But remembering that we really need to get to know everybody and know what their point A is, and just leveling up. We do this with kids. When kids walk in, we want them to grow from where they are. How do we then really frame this for teachers to understand, and for administrators working with teachers, that we're going to meet you at this point, but we need to level you up to this point?
Yeah, I think it's like, as you said, it's first understanding where they are. And I think the other part of it too, I think that's really important, is understanding you are not where you are at right now too. And
Right.
that I think a lot of times people say like, hey, you need to be really behind this, or you need to be really for this, including myself in the past of doing that. Understanding that you were probably sometimes the things you are for, you were once against, and what got you to that place. Right.
Right.
And that I think that there's a context there as well. And I don't think it's, hey, we need to get you here. It's really, how do you get people to move forward. Because if they're moving forward, they'll get there. Right?
Right.
Does that make sense? Like it might not be as fast as you want it, but
Right.
the whole process going back is about learning. So for me, it is asking questions, trying to understand where they're at, and then finding areas that we can build upon. And what is really good, like the Cheryl conversation that you mentioned, it was seeing what was already good, acknowledging that, and then she felt very validated that I saw what was great in her, that she was willing to start moving in a direction that I was hoping the school would start to move in. And that's where the approach really, really matters, because no matter what you're going to do, that is the leveling up, is how are people moving forward, getting that momentum. And I think the idea of when you feel you're moving forward and you start to build some confidence through that process, then you develop competence, and then you develop competence. It gives you more confidence, and that kind of feeds into each other. But just saying someone's wrong, a lot of times what that does is it pushes them further away than when they started. Right? Like if you're trying to make me do something, even when I know it's right, if I feel I'm being pressured, I just innately don't want anything to do with it.
Or they want to wait it out. They're like, this is something that I can just wait out and this will go away.
Yeah,
Eventually, I won't have to do it.
exactly.
I
Exactly.
think about coaching leaders, coaching new leaders. I'm lucky in Itasca where I work that I'm surrounded by some great new leaders, some leaders who've been around, and I think about how I can look at them from where they are at their point
Hmm.
A
Hmm.
and where I am, and how I'm leveling them up in their leadership and how they can coach. Then teachers do the same. What have you seen, and in your experience, others doing that, and what kind of advice would you give as someone who's going to be mentoring leaders, leveling those leaders up?
Well, it's interesting because when you talk to, there's another Cheryl in my life in that book. I don't know if I remember her name, but I do remember, maybe I did mention her name. She was my AP. Her name is Cheryl Johnson. And there were things when she was my assistant principal as a principal, and she was an incredible teacher. She was actually a teacher where I was the assistant principal. And
Okay.
and weirdly enough, uh, her and I would argue all of the time. That like all of the time. She would push back on everything, and that's why I hired her, which is interesting because like typically that's not a typical administrator story. Like, hey, remember that teacher that was like a thorn in your side? That's who I
Right.
wanted as but that's why I wanted her because I knew she wanted what's best for kids. She was a very dynamic teacher, and the whole point of this, she had strengths that I didn't have. And
Mhm.
so, hey, I want her to be at this point, but she's like, why aren't you at this point? Why aren't you at this point on this thing? And so I
Right.
think when you're looking at your leadership team, it is not necessarily getting everyone to be good at the same thing, but finding people that complement you and actually are good at something that you might not be good. So I'll give you like a weird example. When I was assistant principal, typically where we were, they always dealt with student discipline, right? That was the assistant principal job. Now I'm very good at student discipline. Like I was very good with it. Parents really appreciated how I communicated with them. I was very good with kids and just the way I did it. And honestly, I was a horrible kid in school. So there was nothing you could have done that I was like surprised at. So it just made it easier. When you're in the office as a mentorship as a kid, it's easier when you're the principal, right? So when I became the principal, I said to Cheryl, I know typically this is the AP job. I'm doing this. This is my thing. It's not you're in this role, here are your things. It's like I'm really
Right.
good at this.
Right.
What are you good at? And so I think when you build teams like that, you both get better at each other's things, if that makes sense. It's not let's all be exactly this. It's like no, we need compliments to each other. We need people that are good at this, people that are good at this. And it's honestly my philosophy of how we look at students. I have said this before and I mentioned in the book. My goal is not to have every kid walking out of school good at the same thing. My goal is that every kid walks out of school knowing they're good at something. And
Right.
and it's not I think that's what we have to start looking for. It's a very different because it's like all here's our math scores. I'm like, yeah, but like let's look at these kids as individuals. Where are they really good at? How do we help them walk out of that? And what are the really key components they have to understand in math? Knowing they'll probably never be mathematicians, and that's okay. That's okay. And so, maybe that's a little different philosophy than I'm supposed to have, but that is how my kids, I have 3 kids, they're very good at very different things, and they struggle in different areas and they complement each other. They're not the same kid.
Right. I think we want our teachers to know more about our kids than a number. What do they like to
100%.
do outside of school? What is their favorite food? Just to really get to know a kid and know that they feel valued. I think kids feel seen then when teachers know a little bit more about them and they can build on those strengths as they move forward. So I do appreciate that.
Appreciate that.
So one of the other things that really stuck with me, and I'm actually dealing with some of this right now in my own leadership, is I struggle with finding the balance. And the quote that I wrote down, 80% of our time is spent on
Right.
20% of the people, and we should be doing 80% of our time on 80% of the people. And with that, I wrote down what we permit, we
Hmm.
promote. So while we tend to, go to the parent that's upset, go to the teacher that's not doing, focusing and they're like working so hard, it's almost like we're running through mud. But then I struggle with, well, if we don't, if we keep permitting this behavior or,
Right.
allowing teachers to, or not teachers, parents to put things out there, are we promoting it? So what's the balance and what have you seen and what could you kind of clarify and talk more about is what's the balance with that 80/20, 80/80?
So if you're talking specifically, for example, about teachers, right? We have a lot of tremendous teachers that are really excited, want to push themselves. And then no matter as much as we pretend this doesn't exist, there are teachers who maybe don't want to be there. They just kind of go through the motions. That is a reality. And it's not like, oh, how dare you say about the teachers? It is literally every profession. That's how it is. It
Right.
just is, right? And so when we get caught up in always focusing on the people that we perhaps see as underperforming, you have a bunch of really great people in your organization who are craving mentorship. They want to get better. I know that, and I know this personally, and I know people who are like this, that when you excel, when you're doing really well and you're really pushing yourself and you feel you're not getting any development, then you tend to want to leave or you get worse because you feel like, listen, I want to get better. Like I want to get better. And have I outgrown this place? Do I not? And so now you start losing really good people.
You talk
And
about that. Is it time to go? Right.
yeah, like, yeah. And I don't want to be anyone in that situation. And
Right.
even worse off, this is something that we've known forever education. Some of our, the teachers that are really excelling, we punish them with more work. Like, well, because we know they'll do the things we ask them because they're just
Yeah.
such team players and things like that.
That's our posse, right? We go to those
Right.
power people,
Right.
right?
And so then you start hurting them, taking away from their personal lives, that aspect of it. So my focus on how do you take care of the 80%, it's not permitting bad behavior or anything like that. It's still, you still got to deal with the 20%, but it's not just time that you spend with a person, it's energy you spend thinking about that person and like
Right.
how you promote that too. So my belief is, and I've seen this work, when you actually spend your time mentoring people, giving them support, finding places they accelerate, that the culture you are promoting is that's what was expected, and then they start taking care of each other.
Right.
And the thing is that we are, as humans, want to be part of something. And if you, and I know this is like maybe like this is a contentious topic. One of the things that's really popular right now on social media is to complain how much teaching sucks. I hear
And
it all
then
the time. And now, you know what I saw? I'll never forget this. And I didn't write about this in the book, and maybe I should have. I saw a teacher that I know, and he's actually in Illinois. I could tell you his name. I'm not going to tell you his name though. And I remember him saying, "I hate to admit this, but I'm having a really good year." And he posted on social media because he knew that saying, "Hey, I'm having a great year." It's like, how dare you say that? Everything's horrible, blah blah blah. And I'm not saying there's no issues in education. That's not the point of the conversation. But sometimes people, because they want to be part of something, it is easier to just say everything sucks, everything's
it
horrible,
is
and
easier to
then
say that,
and then
right?
you just get caught up in that. And I'm not saying let's all be positive. Let's just all look at the good. But it's just proof that we get caught up in those things. And so when you mentor people, when you put that effort, and here's the interesting thing: when you actually focus on the people doing really good stuff, I bet you more of them will actually start sharing about how much they enjoy the profession because they're getting the development, and then they might start talking about it more. But we're like now dealing with the teacher that's having a hard time, having this, and we're like losing the energy from people that want to excel. And I don't think people go to work not wanting to excel, but the good conversation, I'm pretty sure you know Brene Brown, right? Is like, hey, I've had conversations. I really appreciate you as a person. I don't think teaching's for you. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm actually saying it in a positive way because if someone doesn't say this to you now, do you want to look back 30 years from now and saying I was in something I hated for 30 years of my life? And
I actually quoted her today. I said, we were having a conversation about some feedback we need to give. And I said, kind is, clear and
kind,
kind.
yeah, yeah.
Kind is clear. So it's
And
something I think,
I don't think it's a mean thing. Actually think it's a mean thing to let someone flounder.
and I think sometimes in education, I've seen here's the problem we need to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
We talk all around it. Like, why aren't we just saying what we need to say?
Mm-hmm.
Why are we afraid to be clear and kind with this person?
Well, starting
Or,
off the podcast, I said about how you mentored me, and I'll tell you why. It's because you like said some stuff that you're like, you need to maybe focus and get better on this, and that's who I gravitate toward. Like, I want to get better. I don't want to be like you're the best.
you know,
I want, I think a little bit of that. I don't want none of that.
it's well
Right?
deserved. I mean,
Yeah.
your last perspective, it's learn to clap for yourself. So
Yeah.
I really hope that you have clapped a lot for yourself. I think this book, I told you I had a friend come over and she asked to pick it up right away. She's like, "Let's read this book right now." I think there's a lot of real, authentic, um,
I got one question for you. I got one question for you. Okay, so
yes, yes,
you are
take
as
it.
a superintendent. Um, why would a superintendent benefit from reading this book? Is because I know that's a perspective that you have. I don't currently have. What would help with a superintendent? Maybe a superintendent reading with their leadership team.
I think for me specifically, as my first year of superintendency begins, I think I've found the further I've gotten away from the classroom,
Yeah.
I think my perspective has changed. And I think this really brought me back to times where I was a principal and I was in
Mhm.
classrooms more, talking to teachers more. So I think as superintendents, and certainly those in bigger districts were really far away,
Mhm.
um, this really anchored me back to the things that I experienced, not only as a teacher, but talking with teachers and some stories where we might have some Cheryls out there.
Mhm.
We might have some other teachers that aren't happy and they don't want to do a blog or they're not ready
Right.
for any technology, and how are we going to really reset and reflect on that and own that they are at an area that we need to either move them up or
Yeah.
help them see some different ways in which they can improve. So I think it's a book for me that I will read more than once.
On
I,
the
I
beach too. You can read it on the beach. It's a beach read.
it is a beach read. It's a quick one. I did tell you the last time I read a book all in one sitting was at the beach. So I flagged areas that I'm already going to work with my admin team on, but I really think
Whoa.
it anchors us back to the work and the trenches. We always hear like this is what's done in the trenches, but it really talks through that. And I really appreciated the successes you talked about, some of the missteps you had and how you
Mhm.
reflected through that. I think that's so important because this work isn't all sunshines and rainbows. We've all had the days where we're like, well, that didn't work. But I think the difference between you and maybe some other authors out there or some other, leaders, and you identified it, you owned it, and you said, yep, I was wrong or that was bad. I don't think a lot of people have the ability to say those things. It's like those who could say I'm sorry and those can't.
Well, you know what?
I
You know what's interesting, and I'll ask you if this has ever happened to you. I'm sure you've had multiple successes in your career, and maybe you've brought them up to staff. But when you've ever said, "Hey, I actually messed this up," it's like people just connect with you. They're like, "Oh, I so appreciate you said that." Do you know what I mean? It's like it connects you on a human level because a
right.
lot, especially in the superintendent role, obviously you've done things to get to that position. So people think, oh, you're just like a high achiever and you're just, just moving up so quickly. And so they don't see some of the things that go wrong. And when you put that into a light, it actually makes you relatable. And,
It's funny,
and
yeah, you said that because I was at a meeting and I had to give a presentation somewhere
mm,
and I was really nervous about it. And I don't know why I was, because usually once I start talking, I'm fine.
yeah,
And I own that I'm really nervous and anxious about it. And she said to me, you need to share that more.
yeah,
What? That I'm nervous and anxious? She's like, people don't think you get nervous at
right,
all. I go, oh my gosh.
right. And those are the things that people need to share. Like, hey, this is like the whole idea of, hey, you need to take risks. It's easy
Right.
for a boss to say, but it
Mhm.
is when they're controlling whether you have a job or not, then
Right.
it's a little terrifying. But when you see the person that, is your direct report, the person who can hire and fire you
Right.
says, hey, here's something I'm struggling with. It then makes it a much more attainable culture to try some different things, to, push yourself to a new level. Because a
Yeah.
lot of times the reason why people are not moving forward is because they're terrified, what if I screw up? And so when you say it first, it just kind of opens up, like, I can make mistakes too, not egregious like horrible things, but just
Right.
that process of learning. Like
Right.
I said this to your group, like, learning is your job. It is
Right.
literally your job. And so something I really appreciate. I Listen, you are awesome, and I've had so many different everyone has been different. I don't know what to expect. The studiousness of you and writing notes and
Classes.
having things, and
Totally.
actually that was my favorite. I actually am a big sports fan. There's a show, and when they're serious, they're like, time to put on the glasses, and right away you're like, let's get in the conversation. I noticed you right away. I'm like, well, let's go. It's
Can I
like
ask
part
a
of the
funny
charm.
question that I
Let's go.
have? My last one, bring us
Let's go.
home.
Let's go.
Okay, you're going to an event, you're speaking,
Uh huh.
your M&M ask. You don't really have those. You don't really ask for
Oh, I got
anything.
one. I got one.
What is your I want to know what your M&M ask is. And
My
those, yep.
Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead. Say what it is.
You got to read the story to know what the M&M ask is. Maybe you'll explain it or
Yeah, you have
but
to leave it
um
there. What is my brown M&Ms? It
yes.
is. I need the. I need audio to go through my auxiliary input on my computer. That is like the bane of my existence. And
I should have
one,
guessed that because I think I threatened our tech guy by into his life hearing you before you came out and spoke with us. I said, listen, I think I might, hurt you if this doesn't work for this guy.
that is the one, because
Yeah.
like it's interesting because it is like a detail thing, and it does kind of make you feel like you're like, you didn't read it. Like, this is the one thing, because I've had it before, and they're like, "Oh, we thought you just would this. You'd be fine with this." I'm like, "No, I like specifically asked for this thing."
You did highlight it though, so I
I
felt
do,
like
I do. Yeah,
yellow.
it is totally. It
Yeah.
is the one thing, and it is something that the when people say don't sweat the small stuff, I'm like, no, no, no. The small stuff actually matters, and
Yep.
you have to pay attention to it, because if you don't pay attention to the small stuff becomes big stuff,
Hmm.
and that's where it goes bad. So that's an interesting. That was like an interesting. I like that question. That was
My
a,
ender, Eminem.
all right.
Need to
Hey,
know.
if you listen, I know this is Heidi's podcast, but if you don't know Heidi, please connect with her. She is an incredible leader, someone I consider a very good friend, and that is like a new friendship. Like, we've only known each other for a little while, but you and I are just, we love our exercise, we love working out, we love kind of pushing stuff, joking around. So I just really appreciate you. So if you don't know Heidi, thanks for taking time out of your busy day before you go and change the world again. So thanks everyone for listening. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for all you do.